And sometimes these practices can be so entrenched that they are considered to be, say, corruption. Some folks might pass it off as cost of doing business. I think you mentioned in your book about were bribes tax deductible in Germany until 1993. Is that right? Which I found was.
Later, I can't remember off the top of my head. Bribes were tax deductible for a very, very long time. When I first started working in corruption in the early 2000s, people would sort of say, exactly, that's just the way they do business over there. It's just cultural. It's just the kind of problem with developing countries. I mean, I think one of the big stories, right, of the last decade, and we can think about the Panama Papers and the Paradise Papers and the kind of collective realization that a lot of corruption is facilitated by the international financial system. What I tell my students is the reason you can't afford property in New York or San Francisco or London is because there's all this laundered money pushing up property prices. So to argue that this is just cultural, this is just the way Indians do business, it's just the way Chinese people do business, is not true. Like, there's enormous amounts of legalized corruption in the US and there's enormous amounts of complicity by the international financial system. Kleptocrats and oligarchs need to be able to move their money out of the country, and so they need offshore functions, same functions that mainstream corporations use. And so I hope we've evolved from this situation where people in the West, rather hypocritically, are sitting there and pointing fingers at people in developing countries. And I think we've kind of realized that things like the Transparency International Corruptions Perceptions Map, that's not a map of corruption. That's a map of where the crimes are committed, not where the criminals live. And if you live anywhere with a lot of natural resources, you probably know this story of the resource curse, that there are a lot of people, a lot of money will come in and try to exploit those resources. It tends to drive corruption. It undermines democracy. It causes conflict. And so we've got these kind of bigger systemic challenges that I don't think are solved by pointing fingers and saying that's just the way they do business over there.